Excellencies, distinguished members of the Judiciary, honored guests, distinguished panelists, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning. My name is Thanuvat Rinanon, Associate Dean of the School of Diplomacy and International Studies, Rangsit University. And it's my pleasure to be your Master of Ceremony for today. Welcome to the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026. We are truly pleased to have all of you here with us. With such a distinguished gathering of the judicial leaders, legal experts, and esteemed guests from across the region and beyond. Thank you for taking the time to join us at Rangsit University, Bangkok, Thailand. Your presence reflects the importance of today's forum and the relevance of the discussions we will have throughout the day. To formally commence the opening ceremony, may I kindly invite all guests to rise for the national anthem. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026 is organized to bring together members of the judiciary, legal practitioners, and policymakers to share perspectives on the challenges we are facing today. As legal systems continue to evolve, there is a growing need for open discussion on issues such as judicial independence, accountability, and public confidence. Today's forum provides an opportunity for that exchange and for strengthening understanding across different jurisdictions. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, it is my pleasure to invite Dato Setia Haji Nik Suhaimi bin Nik Sulaiman, Organizing Chairman and Legal Advisor to the International Strategy Institute, to deliver the welcoming keynote address. Dato Setia Nik, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Master Ceremony. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. If I'm pronounced wrongly, please advise me. Sawadee krap, yin di tong rap. Your Excellencies, Your Honorable Judges, and distinguished members of the judiciary, esteemed speakers, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are very deeply honored by the presence of our distinguished VVIPs and honored guests in today's event. We would like to welcome my dearest friend, the Honorable Justice Datuk Nordin bin Hassan, a judge of the Federal Court of Malaysia, Dr. Adit Khoirarat, founding president of Rangsit University, former vice president of the Parliament of Thailand, and former speaker of the House of Representatives of Thailand. His Excellency Datuk Wan Zaidi Wan Abdullah, our Ambassador of Malaysia to the Kingdom of Thailand, Mr. C.Y. Chia, Chairman of the International Strategy Institute, ISI, the Honorable Mr. Pondik Wanikritikut, President Justice of the Supreme Court of Thailand, and Professor Wicha Mahalkun, Dean of the School of Law, Rangsit University, and lastly, Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Nizam Sairi, Honorary Advisor of the International Strategic Institute, ISI. It seems their presence this morning reflects the importance of this forum and our shared commitments towards strengthening judiciary integrity, institutional resilience, and regional cooperation across Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the International Strategy Institute, ISI, it is my great honor to welcome all of you to the World Judiciary Integrity Forum 2026 here at Rangsit University in Bangkok. At the outset, allow me to express my and ISI's sincere appreciation to Rangsit University for its strong partnership and invaluable support as a co-host of this year's forum. Their commitment and our long partnership have been instrumental in bringing together this distinguished gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, we are particularly pleased to convene this forum in Thailand, a close neighbor of Malaysia and an important regional partner. More importantly, it reflects the purpose of WJIF to bring together diverse legal systems across Asia on a common platform for dialogue, exchange, and collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this forum, Justice, Reform, and Resilience towards a global legal future, reflects the realities facing judicial institutions today. Across the region, courts are adapting to new expectations, increasing case complexity, growing cross-border interactions, and rising demand for efficiency and accessibility. At the same time, developments such as digitalization and technological advancements are reshaping how legal systems operate. Different jurisdictions are approaching these changes in different ways. Some are focusing on strengthening institutional frameworks, others on improving access to justice, and others on enhancing commercial dispute resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, this diversity is not a challenge. It is precisely why a platform like this is important. This forum is not about prescribing a single model. It's about creating a space where experience can be shared, challenges can be discussed openly, and practical solutions can be explored collectively. Ladies and gentlemen, but one we have to remember, one principle that lies at the very heart of justice is to have a fair and functioning society. In legal maxims, justice must not only be done, but it must also be seen to be done, must always be adhered and protected. This phrase, originating from the landmark English case R versus Sussex Justices ex parte McCarthy, 1924, is more than just a legal maxim. It is a reminder that justice is not only about outcomes, but also about public confidence in the system that delivers those outcomes. At its core, justice demands fairness, impartiality, and integrity. Courts are expected to decide cases based solely on evidence and law, free from bias and external influence. However, even when justice is carried out correctly behind closed doors, it risks losing legitimacy if the public perceives it otherwise. In today's modern world, the principle is more relevant than ever. With the rise of social media and instant communications, public perceptions can be shaped rapidly. Courts must therefore balance transparency with responsibility, ensuring that justice is visible without being distorted by misinformation and sensationalism. However, we must also acknowledge the challenges and changes. Complete transparency is not always possible. Certain cases, such as those involving internet security, minors, or sensitive information, requires confidentiality. In such situations, the systems must strive to maintain trust by providing clear reasons for any limitations or openness. Ultimately, this principle teaches us that justice is not just a legal obligation, it is a public institution built on trust. Without that trust, even the most careful decisions can be doubted, resisted, or rejected. Therefore, where justice needs to be seen, how then justice can be balanced and be compromised with the future reform and advanced systems and artificial intelligence, AI. Ladies and gentlemen, over the course of today's sessions, we will examine key areas including judicial independence and accountability, digital transformations of courts, commercial and insolvency framework, and cross-border judicial cooperation. These are real and pressing issues that directly affect how courts function, how disputes are resolved, and how confidence in the legal system is maintained. As a dependent institute based in Malaysia, ISI remains committed to facilitating meaningful dialogues on governance, institutional integrity, and public development. With WJIF 2026, we are honored to extend this effort into the judicial sphere, bringing together distinguished participants from across the region to contribute to this important conversation. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all our distinguished panelists and participants, and also the Secretariat for ensuring this forum a success. Your presence here reflects a shared commitment to strengthening judicial systems and advancing integrity across jurisdictions. Ladies and gentlemen, the success of this forum will not be measured solely by today's discussion, but by how these conversations continued beyond this platform within your respective institution and jurisdiction. Judicial integrity is not achieved through a single innovative or initiative. It requires continuous effort, discipline, and collaboration. With that, I wish all of you a productive and meaningful forum. Thank you, and have a success sessions. And in Thailand language, I would say, Kop kan krap, ho hai ngan ni prosop one sun red. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sajinik, for your address. Dr. Sajinik, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the special keynote address. It is my honor once again to invite Dr. Athit Urairat, the President of the Rangsit University, former Vice President of the Parliament of Thailand, former Speaker of the House of Representatives of Thailand, to deliver the opening keynote address. Dr. Athit, the stage is yours.
Your Excellencies, distinguished members of the judiciary, honored guests from the International Strategy Institute of Malaysia, esteemed faculty of the School of Law, and participants from across the globe. Good morning. It is a profound honor to stand before you today at the opening of the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026. On behalf of Rangsit University, I extend a warm welcome to our partners from the International Strategy Institute, led by their visionary chairman, and to the legal luminaries who have traveled from near and far to join us here in Pathum Thani. This is not Bangkok. Today, Rangsit University is not just a campus of higher learning. It is a global sanctuary for the exchange of ideas that will shape the very foundation of human civilization. The theme chosen for this year, Justice, Reform, and Resilience Towards a Global Legal Future, could not be more timely. We live in an era of unprecedented transition. The digital revolution, the complexities of climate justice, and the shifting tides of geopolitics have placed our judicial systems under a magnifying glass. But as we gather here, we must ask ourselves, what is a legal system if it's not grounded in integrity? Laws are merely words on parchment. Unless they are upheld by individuals and unwavering character and institutions built on the bedrock of transparency. Justice is the anchor of peace. In a world where inequality can often feel systemic, the judiciary remains the last resort for the marginalized. At Rangsit University, our School of Law has always emphasized that a lawyer's duty is not just to the client, but to the truth. As we look toward global legal future, we must ensure that justice is not a luxury, but a common right, accessible and equitable for all, regardless of borders. However, justice cannot remain static. This brings us to reform. We cannot solve 21st century disputes with 19th century mindsets. Whether it is the integration of artificial intelligence in legal research, or the streamlining of cross-border arbitration, reform is the regime that keeps the law relevant. Though our collaboration with the International Strategy Institute, ISI, we recognize that reform is not just a local necessity, but a regional and global imperative. Our friends from Malaysia bring with them a wealth of experience in strategic regional growth, and their presence here underscores a vital truth in the modern world. Judicial integrity is a shared responsibility. And finally, resilience. The past years have taught us that the world can change in an instant. A resilient judiciary is one that can withstand political pressure, economic instability, and technological disruption without compromising its core values. Resilience is about building systems that do not break under the weight of a crisis, but instead adapt to serve the people better. This forum is a testament to the power of collaboration. The partnership between the ISI and School of Law, Rangsit University represents a bridge between policy, strategy, and academic rigor. To the students of law present here today, look at the masters of the bench and bar in this room. They are here because they believe in the future you will inherit. To our distinguished guests, I invite you to use this forum not just for debate, but for the forging of a new global legal roadmap. As I look across the assembly, I see the architects of tomorrow's legal landscape. I'm confident that the dialogues held within these walls over the coming days will echo far beyond our campus. Let us be bold in our thinking. Let us be courageous in our reforms. And above all, let us be steadfast in our integrity. It is now my great honor to officially declare the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026 open. May your deliberations be fruitful, and may your time here at Rangsit University be inspired. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atit, for your very impressive keynote address. Dr. Atit, please remain on the stage for the presentation of a token of appreciation. For this, I would like to invite Mr. CYJ, Chairman of the International Strategy Institute, to present the token to Dr. Atit. May I kindly invite Dr. Dato Sajir Haji Nik Suhaimi bin Nik Sulaiman to accompany the presentation on the stage. May I kindly ask everyone on stage to look forward to the camera for the official photograph. Dr. Atit, Mr. CYJ, and Dato Sajir Haji Nik, thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the opening keynote address. It is my honor to invite the Honorable Justice Dato Nordin bin Hassan, Judge of the Federal Court of Malaysia, to deliver the opening keynote address.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues from the bench, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all. Now, it is a privilege to be here at the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026. I extend my appreciation to the International Strategy Institute and the Rangsit University for convening this important forum. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now to begin with, allow me to touch briefly on the rule of law. Now, for many years, scholars have been extensively debated a wide range of proposed standards for the rule of law. Despite this, sharply divided political factions continue to invoke the principle to support their respective positions. As Dante Alighieri once wrote, "Justice is so lovely that it is loved even by its enemies." This observation applies even more strongly to the rule of law. While the ideal places unwelcome constraint on those in power, it is also carries a powerful aura of legitimacy, one that can be rhetorically exploited by those seeking to preserve its appearance whilst minimizing its demands. Now, the rule of law relies fundamentally on a strong legal profession and judiciary that both understand and are firmly committed to its principles. Lawyers and judges serve as stewards of the law and facilitators of accountability. As vital intermediaries, lawyers connect legal frameworks with citizens, institutions, and public officials, enabling individuals to use the law to safeguard their rights and engage in systems of mutual accountability. Now, judges, in turn, uphold the integrity of the law and its core processes, striving to maintain public trust in the legal system, safeguarding judicial independence, and ensuring clear impartiality are indispensable to sustaining a resilient rule of law society. Now, ladies and gentlemen, maintaining the authority of the rule of law amidst systematic transformation, whether driven by digital change, political upheaval, or economic restructuring, requires strengthening institutional independence, ensuring transparency in governance, and cultivating public trust. As its core, the principle endures that no individual is above the law, and the legal framework must evolve to address emerging realities without compromising fundamental standard of justice. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, "No man is above the law, and no man is below it, nor do we ask any man's permission when we ask him to obey it." Now, in such an environment, the role of the judiciary becomes even more critical. Courts must remain consistent where others are inconsistent, principled where others are expedient, and impartial where others may be influenced. The judiciary is not merely an institution of adjudication. It is a pillar of stability in an increasingly uncertain legal order. Now, the preservation of rule of law requires two essential and independent criteria. There is judicial independence and judicial accountability. Now, in a democratic system, neither can function effectively in isolation. Each depends on other to ensure both the integrity and legitimacy of the judiciary. Now, if the law is applied selectively, it ceases to be law. It becomes discretion dressed in legality. Now, at the national level, the direction is clear. As articulated by Chief Justice of Malaysia, Datuk Seri Panglima Wan Ahmad Farid Wan Saleh, judicial independence must be vigorously protected and relentlessly safeguarded. Now, judicial independence is a cornerstone of rule of law. Judges must be free to decide cases without external influence or fear of reprisal. Encroachment from the executive or legislative branches must not happen. Now, this commitment reflects a broader institutional effort, not only to preserve independence, but to strengthen public confidence, transparency, and access to justice. Now, in Malaysia, this has been translated into concrete judicial reforms. These reforms are not theoretical, they are practical, measurable, and ongoing. Now, among others, the expansion of specialized court, including the recent establishment of the International Commercial and Admiralty Court, designed to handle complex cross-border and maritime disputes with greater expertise and efficiency. Then the continued digitalization of courts processes, including e-filing systems and virtual hearings, improving accessibility and reducing delays. And then the sustained efforts to reduce case backlogs and improve case management, ensuring that justice is not only be done, but delivered promptly. And also initiative to enhance the quality and consistency of judicial decision-making, particularly in commercial and transnational matters. Now, these are not merely administrative changes. They reflect a deeper institutional objective, that is, to ensure that administration of justice remains credible, responsive, and globally relevant. Ladies and gentlemen, now alongside these reforms, we must confront the growing role of technology. The Malaysian judiciary position is clear. Technology is to be embraced, but with discipline. Judges must be equipped not only to utilize technological tools, but to understand and manage their implications. Now, in the digital age, judges must proactively engage with legal technologies. The integration of e-court system, online dispute resolutions mechanism, and the handling of digital evidence requires judges to possess digital literacy in addition to legal expertise. Now, this includes technology-driven innovation such as AI. Judges must be able to adapt those tools to ensure efficiency, accessibility, and responsiveness in the administration of justice. Now, while technology offers significant benefits in terms of efficiency, accessibility, and analytical supports, its greatest risk lies not in replacement, but in dependency. Over time, reliance on automated tools may shape decision-making, even without formally displacing the judge. In this context, vigilance becomes essential. A court may use technology, but it must never surrender judgment. Judicial decision-making requires reasoning, proportionality, and a deep understanding of a human context. These are not functions that can be delegated, because ultimately responsibility cannot be automated and judgment cannot be outsourced. Now, ladies and gentlemen, judges are now called upon to perform roles beyond the traditional tasks of adjudication. They are expected to interpret and apply the law with clarity and fairness, while at the same time being attuned to societal developments, technological advancement, and the growing of the intricacies of cases. We are therefore navigating two simultaneous pressures. There is external pressure, where the consistency of legal principle is increasingly tested at global level, and the internal pressure, where technological advancement is reshaping how justice is administered. Now, media narratives and political rhetoric sometimes question the motive behind judicial decision, thereby eroding public trust in and the perceived impartiality of the court. This pressure poses a serious risk to the integrity of the judicial institution. The convergence of this pressure defines the challenge before us. Efficiency alone is no longer sufficient. Judicial system must be principled in reasoning, disciplined in application, and resilient in the face of change. Judges must be not only well-versed in law, but also continuously engaged in learning, reflection, and self-care. It is through structure and ongoing judicial education that judges remain effective, relevant, and responsive to the needs of justice in the modern era. Now, a judiciary that values this and safeguards its members' well-being is more likely to foster sound, principled decision-making and to sustain institution integrity. The expanding role of judges in a rapidly evolving legal and societal landscape also underscore the importance of safeguarding their mental, emotional, and physical well-being. The Malaysian Judicial Academy has begun incorporating modules on judicial ethics, emotional intelligence, and stress awareness into its continuing judicial education program. Now, although they are currently limited in scope and frequency, they reflect a growing institutional acknowledgement that mental and emotional health are relevant to judicial performance and integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, in the modern legal system, the judicial role encompasses decision-making in individual cases and broader normative functions, including the protection of fundamental rights, maintenance of institutional integrity, and supervision of governmental power. That this expanding role must be exercised with independence, impartiality, competence, and integrity as underscored in the Bangalore Principle of Judicial Conduct 2002. Now, for Muslim judges, the foremost guide in their daily conduct is the Holy Quran. It underscores the importance of integrity, particularly in matters of trust and responsibility as stated in Surah An-Nisa. Indeed, Allah commands you to render trust to whom they are due, and when you judge between people, to judge with justice. Now, the authority of judiciary does not derive from force. It derives from trust, and the trust rests on the expectation that justice will be fair, impartial, and consistently applied. To maintain public confidence in judiciary, which is the cornerstone of the rule of law, judges must uphold the highest standard of professionalism, both in and out of court. Socrates has once described 4 qualities of a good judge. That is, to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly and to decide impartially. Now, Lord Bingham, in his lecture in September 1993, states this: a judge must free himself of prejudice and partiality, and so conduct himself in court and out of it as to give no ground for doubting his ability and willingness to decide cases coming before him solely on their legal and factual merits, as they appear to him in the exercise of an objective, independent, and impartial judgment. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude with this reflection. The future of the judiciary will not be determined solely by how advanced our system become, but by how firmly we remain anchored in principle and integrity. Integrity is not only about doing what is right when it is easy, it is about doing what is right when it is hard. In a word, where power may at times overshadow principle, the judiciary must remain constant, a place where law is applied not selectively, but consistently, fairly, and without fear. The responsibility before us is very significant, but so too is the opportunity to ensure that even in times of transformation, the rule of law remains not only relevant, but respected. Now with that, it is again my honor to declare the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026 officially open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Lordship, for your keynote address. And please remain on the stage for the present of the token of appreciation. And for dates, I would like to invite Mr. CYJ and Dato Sajia Hajinik to present the token to the Honorable Justice Dato Noordin bin Hassan. All distinguished guests, please remain on the stage as we now proceed to the official launching of the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026. We would like to invite our other VVIP onto the stage for the launching gimmicks, which is the ribbon cutting. For this, I would like to invite Dr. Atit Urairat, the President of Rangsit University. His Excellency Datuk Wan Saiban Abdullah, Ambassador of Malaysia to the Kingdom of Thailand. Mr. Pongdet Wanit Kittikun, Presiding Justice of the Supreme Court. Professor Visha Mahakun, Dean of the School of Law, Rangsit University. And Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Bisom Sadri, Honorary Advisor of International Strategy Institute, on the stage. Meanwhile, as the ushers prepare the stage, all distinguished guests, please get ready for the ribbon cutting ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, right now all VVIPs have their scissors in their hands. And on my count, 3, 2, and 1. With that, we mark the World Judicial Integrity Forum is now officially running. May I once again invite all distinguished guests to look towards the camera for these official photographs. May I once again invite all distinguished guests to look forward to the camera for the official photograph. Should we cross the hand? No. Thank you very much. All the VVIP guests, please proceed to your seats. Meanwhile, the crew will be setting up to the stage for the panel discussions. We invite all guests to enjoy the tea break, and the conference is expected to resume at 10:15 a.m. 10:15 a.m. We kindly invite all participants to return to the hall and remain seated as the conference will recommence shortly. In the meantime, panelists and moderators of the topic discussion 1 are kindly requested to prepare earlier. Once the stage set up, including the sofas and chairs, is ready, you may proceed to prepare your fellow panelists and moderator. Thank you very much once again, and please have a very enjoy of the coffee break. program, the School of Law, Rangsit University, together with the panelists of the panel discussion 1, Mr. Mohammad Itzaham bin Mohammad Itzam, Dr. Pratamaporn Iem Ampha, Police Colonel Siripon Kuson Sinbut, and Professor Dr. Prasit Ekaput. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our moderator and panelists. I will now pass the floor to Ms. Lily to begin the panel discussion. The floor is yours.
So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first sessions of the World Judicial Integrity Forums of 2026. My name is Nolapat Pipipunpriya, Director of the Bachelor's of Laws program from Faculty of Law, Rangsit University, and I will be your moderator for today's sessions. So, ladies and gentlemen, in our first sessions, we are going to start with the judicial independence, accountability, and public confidence across Asia. And we are honored to have the experts from both Malaysia and Thailand to be our panelists today. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first panelist, Mr. Mohammad Ishaq bin Mohammad Isham from Malaysia. He is partner and head of the government advisory practice of Syed Ibrahim and Company. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is Professor Prasit Ekaput from Thailand. He is the expert in the international law and currently a senior professor of Doctors of Law programs. Next panelist is Dr. Pratamaporn Iem Ampha from Thailand. She is a lecturer of law and also the independent legal practitioners as well. And our last panelist is Police Colonel Dr. Siripon Kuson Sinbut. He is the Director of the Legal Affairs and Deputy of Secretary General of the Office of the Personal Data Protection Committee of Thailand. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Asian societies evolve, judicial system has been scrutinized about judicial conduct, decision-making process, ethical standards, backlogs, and delays. Therefore, in these sessions, we are going to tackle the practical approach of how we can enhance the accountability and transparency while still maintaining the judicial independence and autonomy to gain public confidence across Asian jurisdiction. And we shall discuss this topic in a comparative manner as we have the experts from both Malaysia and Thailand who have expertise at international levels. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Mohammad Ishaq bin Mohammad Isham to commence his opening remarks.
All right, thank you, Madam Moderator. Good morning, everyone. My name is Izaha. As introduced earlier, I'm a partner from Syed Ibrahim & Co. Malaysia. It's actually an honor and a pleasure for me to be here today on this esteemed panel. Thank you, organizers, for inviting me to this event to share my kind of insights and thoughts in this area. I'm not actually an expert on the judiciary. I just want to qualify that. My area of practice is quite unique. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your traditional lawyer, so I don't go to court, I don't draft documents. But what I do is I draft policy. And I think kind of resonating with what Dr. Artit said in his opening remarks, I do law reform. So usually the work that I do comes in before it goes to the courts or after it's interpreted by the courts. So it's quite interesting because I found my passion in kind of shaping law and policy, but not through the judicial means, so it's non-traditional. I would say it's not legal per se, not to say that it's illegal, the type of work that I do, but it's quasi-legal. It borders along legal and consultancy. I advise governments on basically drafting laws, drafting policy, and also implementing those policies. I've done work in Malaysia a lot for many federal bodies, federal government bodies and agencies, and also in the region. Actually, most recently, I'm doing a lot of trade policy related work. So that's just a bit of my background for you to understand how I come into this topic. Maybe I'll just go through the slides to give you a bit of insights in terms of what I want to talk about today. So from a law reform or public policy perspective, I think it's good to set the stage on the judiciary. So I think everyone on this panel knows, it was mentioned during the opening remarks, the role of the judiciary is to interpret decisions, right? And also to make sure that those decisions are right. I think if you look at my slide, and of course I have judges from Malaysia here, so I can't go into the specific cases, but you know, in terms of the themes or topics that are affecting the judiciary in Malaysia, I think it's common in most countries, right? In Thailand as well, in any ASEAN jurisdiction and across the world. The first one that I was highlighting in the slide here, if you see it, is on the interference. I know I said executive interference, but it actually could be from any branch or anybody outside the judiciary itself. So interference is a key issue, and I think that is quite consistent across the various jurisdictions. The second one, of course, if you look into, is the public interest or public scrutiny. So when we talk about, you know, for example, high-profile cases, of course, everyone becomes a lawyer then. Things are known publicly, and everyone gets a lot of data information. I think this also fits nicely to the third point that I'm trying to make, which is the evolving legal landscape, because I think one of the panels today is also on technology and on AI. So with AI, we don't really know what's true. There's a lot of false information being spread. So when cases are being tried, and you know, this information is circulated through social media, through WhatsApp, we don't know whether we're getting is true or not. And to make matters worse, everyone becomes a lawyer because they get this information, they put it through AI, and then they think they know what's best, and they try to give their own opinion. Now, having that as a backdrop in terms of the issues, which I think is common across, you know, all jurisdictions, I think the next point that I want to make, sorry, the slides are not changing, but okay, let me point at the, okay, there is it. No? Ah, there, thank you. So the next point I'm trying to make is that we can't look at the judiciary issue in silo, right? We know the three arms of government. We have judiciary, legislative, and executive. I think it's important to identify that this is not a judiciary issue in isolation. If you look at the chart that I put on the right, I just call it a very simple prosecutorial chart. We have the flow from the legislative actually developing the laws, which is, you know, your parliament. Then you have your executive implementing the laws, and then finally it goes to the courts to interpret. Now, if we only look at the issue from a judicial perspective, you're only rectifying or addressing one part of the problem, but you're not actually looking at the whole ecosystem. So, for example, if Parliament drafts a very bad law or poor law, I think Dr. Ath, in his opening remarks, said that the laws are old, the laws are archaic. Therefore, when it comes to implementation and interpretation, people of today will have difficulty in trying to understand and implement that, because we don't know, you know, what the intent was at that point in time. The law may be 50, maybe more than 60, could even be 100 years old. We don't have 100 years old law in Malaysia. I'm not sure about in Thailand, but we do have some before independence, which dates back more than 60 years. Again, on the implementation side, if the laws are not implemented well, they are challenged again, and this also puts pressure on the judiciary at the end, not on the executive side, the ones who are actually implementing, but the problem comes to the end, which is at the judiciary. So these are some things that actually I think supports the contention or idea that it is not just an isolated problem, but you have to look at the whole ecosystem if you want to improve the process. Now I move on to some of the reforms. I'm not going to go into so many right now. I know I have 5 minutes, so I think the key one for Malaysia is that we have a Judicial Appointments Commission Act. I'm not going to talk about in detail because I think you have some of the questions there, but we've actually codified that process and have established a commission to allow for judicial appointments. I'll move on to the next slide, and this is more about executive reforms. I think the two key ones actually happening now this year in Malaysia is, number one, we're trying to separate the Attorney General's role and the public prosecutor, and number two is we're trying to limit the term of the Prime Minister to 10 years. That's the most latest. I think you can read, I think in terms of the slides, all the developments. And then the last one is from the legislative perspective. So I think three key points, and I think this is also common in most countries. Some of the reforms, of course, ties back to good regulatory practice principles. I believe in Thailand you also have the same concept. You need to review laws every few years. In Malaysia, that's 5 years, number one. Number two, I think the key concept is we have a government Public Service Efficiency Act, which will actually require ministries and agencies to cut red tape by 25%. But more importantly, before you introduce a new law or regulation, I think most of you would know this, there's a one in and one out principle. So you have to remove one law before you can introduce another one. And the last one is to actually establish or incorporate and embed this good regulatory practice tool. So using tools such as sandbox, using tools such as agile regulation in your regulatory delivery, your regulatory design, making sure that when you design these laws, they are fit for purpose and not too prescriptive, which also, in most cases creates that burden and backlog with the judiciary. So I've touched on these three concepts, and I think I will just leave it here for now for my presentation. But I think the conclusion that I'm trying to make or trying to drive, number one, it cannot just be a micro solution at the judiciary. There are solutions, there are interventions to improve judicial integrity, independence, and also instill public confidence in the judiciary. But the second one, in order to address that, it has to be that whole of government or whole of ecosystem approach in order to better the judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Ishaq. So it is essential, as he mentioned, that we need to cooperate not only in judicial in isolation, but also legislative part in terms of design the proper law, and also the executive interference and management. So it's valuable insight. So now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Prasit Ekrabut to deliver your remarks.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to introduce you. My topic today is judicial independence and judicial reform. Why we need to have judicial reform? The problem is our nations around the world, in all nations around the world, the most difficulty in terms of judiciary system are based on the independence of justice. Most of government, most of dictator, most of ruler, they always ignore the reality of the justice. They try to intervene so many frequency, every day, every time, by telephone justice, call some judge, don't make that decision. You must make that decision in favor of my political status. This is a big problem, that how the judges will not be a slave of the dictators. In democratic country, judicial independence is quite necessary, and it is a must for the democracy regime. So it's pity that many developing countries or least developed countries encounter the big problem of interference by executive power and by other persons, sometimes by mafia or by gangster or by prisoner in the jail can telephone to the chief judge and make a lot of unbelievable decision from the court. That's why it's quite so sad story if judge is under the pressure of someone else. So I would like to show you what does it mean, judicial independence. According to the definition broadly that I try to summarize here, judicial independence is the principle that courts and judges must perform their duty free from improper influence, coercions, or control by other person. That person may be politicians, that person may be the head of state, that person may be the head of government, that person may be the owner of some political party, that person may be the media, or that can make a lot of influence in terms of social trend, in terms of public opinion change according to their political will. That is quite difficult if the judges have no freedom to make its own decision based on the rule of law. So next, I would like to show you about the key component of judicial independence. First of all, independence of the judge need a lot of freedom. So court and judges must be free from any kind of judicial interference, namely political interference in the judiciary, executive interference, or improper influence, or undue influence. Not only independent of the judge need to be impartial judge. Impartiality is the basic principle of the judge to perform their duty. Judge must act without fear, without favor, or without bias. And judge must have a good salary too. In some countries, judges are poor, so they can make a lot of corruption. Under table, dirty money go to the hand of the judge by big bag or by the big James Bond bag. That's why a lot of million dollar can pay back to the judge, and some judges, unfortunately, some judges make corruption. And how can we get rid of the judge like this, the bad judge like this? It depends on judicial reform, right? If we have a good accountability of the judge, code of conduct of the judge, and we have a severe sanction based on criminal law, severe sanction against the dirty judge like that, I do believe that justice can be prevail over the politics, over the politicians for sure. Another component is the financial security. So judges' salary cannot typically be reduced during their term and must be protected from the financial pressure. And final, the guardian judge must play the role as a guardian of justice as well. Judge must protect the rule of law. Judge must protect justice. And judge must protect human rights. Why I emphasize on human rights? Because in many countries, just think that just think that they have their own discretion to make judgment, to make decision. without thinking the freedom of people, without thinking the minimum protection standard under international law about the human right of people. So sometimes some judges didn't think about the provisional release in criminal case, for example. They think that in order to make sure that the accused person will never leave the country or leave out from their jurisdiction. So just did not provide easily provisional release or provisional bail. That is not correct. That's why I would like to think about the reform. We go to the next slide.
We have a very brief
Yeah.
time.
Maybe later on, judicial reform, I think.
Yeah, maybe
Thank you.
later on, or we can cooperate in the Q&A sessions about
Okay,
this.
thank you.
Very much, Professor Prasit Ekrabut, for your valuable insight. And now I would like to invite Ms. Patamaporn Ampa to give her opening remarks.
Okay, first of all, thank you for inviting me today. And for briefing my opinion with this topic, it's just only 3 essential topics for for the first issue. I think I'm focusing on the balancing between the judicial independence and public accountability. The judicial independence is essential, but we have to balancing that the modern society increasingly demand accountability from all public institutions, including the judiciary. Court must therefore maintain high standard of ethics, professionalism, transparency, and institutional integrity. This create a difficult but necessary balance. And if courts become too vulnerable to public or political pressure, judicial independence may suffer. But if courts appear too distant or inaccessible, public trust may also decline. And the second challenge is what we may call trial by public opinion. Today, social media can shape public perception before courts have fully examined evidence or legal arguments. A short clip or incomplete information can spread rapidly and create emotional reaction within hours. So this means that courts today are not operating only inside courtroom. They are also operating in a digital environment where information moves faster than legal proceedings. And the third challenge is the access to justice and delay in proceeding. Many people still view the justice system as a complex, expensive, and time-consuming. Even a legal correct judgment may lose legitimacy in the eye of public if justice arrives too slowly. The technology may help to improve efficiency through e-filing system, also online hearing, and the digital access to legal information. However, the technology should remain a tool supporting justice, not a substitute for judicial wisdom and ethical responsibility. I forgot the fourth challenge. The fourth challenge that I focus is the growing number of the cross-border legal issues in Asia. Also, we have facing a cybercrime, money laundering, digital fraud, and the transnational dispute that move across jurisdiction. This problem requires strong regional dialogue and judicial cooperation. This is all my briefly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite Police Colonel Dr. Siripon for your valuable insight.
I need some slide. As Professor Prasit said, we are subject something like
Dr. Siripon slide, sorry.
As Dr. Prasit said that the judge have to protect the rule of law, the justice, and also the human right. When we said about the independence of the court in Thailand, I think since we have the court in a modern state from King Rama V, we reform at least 2 or 3 times for the court of justice. And still right now we have other court that have many problems in our the legal legitimacy and also the rule of law context. Let's wait for the slide. But as I said, that we have many problems in other court, and also we set up the new organization we call the independent agency or independent authority under the constitution. Some independent agency is very independent from any examination and also independent from the people. This is what we said about the separation of power. We have the executive power, we have the judicial power, we also have legislative. In Thailand, we have many other kind of special executive power that very important from the people. Who moved my? Sorry. What is the problem for my?
Not this one. Dr. Siripon. So maybe while we're fixing the issues, we can switch to...
Not this one. This one.
This one, okay.
Okay. This is what Dr. Prasit already said that about the security of the court to guarantee the independence. Like the secretary of tenure, they have to be appointed and they have to leave until they get a retirement without any interference from the executive and also the court inside itself. And the second one will be financial security, the transparency of appointment procedure. That means how to get more promotion. In Thailand right now, have no special condition to get 2 or 3 level of the salary increasing. That everyone, if they have a good performance, they will get a promotion in the same level. So that is so good, and mean that no interference from the commander. If they perform well, they get a promotion by the law currently, and then we get the protection from the external pressure. That means in Thailand, the court have independence to make a decision by the court itself. But in reality, maybe it's not. We have in some case like human rights, free speech, or about some special case that about politics. That maybe the case, the court, the judge, independent judge itself cannot make a decision by themselves. Maybe they have some internal insight that interfere. Some case will be have to return their commander and then make a decision by the other. That is the reality. But when the law said about the impartiality or independent, the law is so good. It looks so good. This is what we already talked about that. But the main problem in Thailand that I think the court have very severe problem in situation, in special situation. In general, the court perform very well in general case, like the criminal law by itself. The court of justice perform very well. But when they are subject to the special case, like particular politics case, free speech case, or majesty law case, that it very strange from what we already try to get the idea of the court independent. That is what we try to study, and also we try to change, to reform, but it's very difficult, and we don't know why. Why the court that cannot perform well in some special case like that. Right now we have special court like the Constitution Court, and in Thailand, if you go to the public opinion, to find the public opinion, no one trusts the court, some court, and that's a very big problem where we don't trust the special court.
About 1 minute left.
Okay, and then this is information that I try to give for you. Right now, only the Court of Justice, we have the number of the court, and we have the senior who already retry from the system, but they still work and get very high salary. And some court, they haven't worked anything, they just get a salary. That is the big problem. This is the salary they get. That is very high. And then now, what I said, it is far from the people, because right now, the committee to administrate the court, there are no person who representative from the general person anymore. This is what I say. Independent from whom? Independent from what? From the people, right? Independent from the people, general. Independent from the examination, from the public, or independent from whatever. And the court, the main problem with the court, they don't care about ICBPR, the International Convention of Political and Civil Rights, and they don't care about the constitution provision in some situation, because they extend their power to make a decision without the basis from the constitution provision itself in some situation. So what I said is it depends from what. And when they get a disciplinary action, we don't know anything. We just know the report to the public that this judge has been make a resign from the disciplinary action, but we don't know anything about that. We don't know the fact, what happened to those judges anymore.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. You can get my slide too.
Like there is a lot of details actually in this session. So if anyone in this room would like more details regarding each specific discussion from each panelist, we can ask them directly after the sessions, or ask to send the PowerPoint slide, right? So as we have been discussing a lot in the main team here, that we need to have judicial accountability and judicial independence or autonomy. I would like to ask, in the big picture, in comparative manner between common law system and the civil law system, of how you balance, between the accountability and judicial autonomy. Are there differences between these two systems, or are they have the same principle? So may I start with Mr. Mohammad Isha?
Unfortunately, I'm the only one here from common law, so I have to answer
Yes,
that question.
you are lucky.
Okay, all right. No problem. Thank you for that question. so I wouldn't be able to give my views from civil law. But I think what I mentioned to you earlier is that we had a reform in terms of legislation in 2009, which actually codified judicial appointments through the setting up of a commission. I think that was a good step in the positive direction, because it's a step to trying to make the process more independent and also transparent. I believe it was largely mirrored from the UK legislation. But having said that, I think, going back to the themes of today, and I thank Professor for being very candid in highlighting a lot of the issues with the judiciary. I mean, I think that's quite common across most jurisdictions. I mean, we won't say it out loud, but those are things that actually happen on the ground. And I think the legislation, I think two key themes. Number one is to introduce the merit-based system, right? So it's actually mentioned in the law itself. What are the qualitative requirements? I mean, I don't believe qualitative in itself is sufficient, because at the end of the day, it's up to the decision maker to determine what those qualities are and whether the individual has that particular quality. So it does give some guidance, but obviously it's not exhaustive. But again, it has come a long way. And I think the second one is trying to remove the decision from a sole individual, right? So instead of one person essentially approving the appointment, and then it goes to a commission that is appointed democratically and also vetted the particular candidate, and then it has a process to it, as opposed to being I guess not transparent in that sense. So those are good reforms. Obviously there are some deficiencies with that model, but at least having that merit-based system hard-coded in law or legislation is a positive step for us. Thank you.
Okay, so in the common law system, the law itself created by the decision making also as a precedent also, right? So it's essential that you also governed by the court itself.
Correct. So the law sets it out, and then the court will interpret.
So this is like kind of different from the civil law system that we have separate legislative system. So may I now ask Dr. Siripon of the balancing of the institutional accountability with judicial autonomy in your perspective in terms of civil law system, how can we balance them?
I think when we talk about the balance of independent and also the public interest, we found that in our country, like civil law country, that we cannot criticize the court's judgment directly. We have to assert that we, under the academia idea, we think this what with the respect of the court decision. So we cannot criticize directly. We cannot blame. We cannot whatever that we think that impolite one. But what I say that we try to make the transparency of the court, that we have to revoke the contempt of the court provision that make the court become more challenged, to make the court more transparency, and then prepare to be criticized by the public interest and public people. And also, I think the disciplinary action must be reveal the detail what happened to the court when the judge had been dismissed, discharged from the court. In some disciplinary action, we don't know about anything at all. What happened to the court? That this is not it's not good for the public interest, because most financial that we invest in the court to let them protect the civil justice and also the human right. So what I try to say that in case that we need to more transparency of the court. The first one, we have to revoke the accusation of the court contempt, and the second one, we have to reveal more information, and the third one, that we should have more people to get involved in the administrative of court. right now is far from that situation. So, and also, okay, maybe that's all.
Okay, thank you very much. So you think that the court needs more transparency, right? And involve more people that they allow to criticize the judicial system. So in other side of the things that people criticize a lot from the court too. I agree though that we need to be able to more criticize and transparency in terms of the court system. But what if, the digital judge, like, people criticizing, scrutinizing from the media or political people, as you mentioned in your remarks, how in today's governance landscape should the court respond to the increasingly scrutiny from the media, civil society, and digital platform? May I ask Professor Prasit?
Don't forget that some media has a lot of powerful in terms of interference to give some favor verdict for politician, for the leader who is behind this curtain. Some politician doesn't use any kind of direct connection with the judge or judges. They use the media, and they can build up the sentiment of the people in the public in order to keep that trend of decision. So we all know that sometimes recruitment of the senior in the parliament, sometimes the media make a lot of influence, and that's why the result of the election, sometimes the people are so sad with the result of the election. That is the way that we call dirty politics, and how the judge, especially constitutional court, the judge in the constitutional court can play the role as a guardian of the rule of law. If the judges in the constitutional court play the role as the slave of the politician, that nation will be sunk down immediately and go back to the corruption state. As you may know, the CPI index, corruption performance index, in this year, some country has already sank down and go deep down at the same level of some least developed country. I don't want to mention the name of that country. Why? Because justice is not guarantee the freedom of people anymore, due to the judge sold the spirit of justice and play the role as a slave of the politician. And that's why I think that judicial independence is not enough. We need to have judicial reform as well. At this moment, I think that time may be constrained. I cannot talk about the judicial reform in detail. Thank you.
Yeah. So from your perspective, that the judge need to strictly not to be a slave or sell their souls to the media. Yeah. So regarding the media, may I briefly ask Dr. Patamaporn about the public communication strategy from the court themselves as outreach initiative. How can the court improve such outreach initiative for the better understanding and trust in the judicial process?
So the public trust in the judicial depends not only on correct legal decision, but also on whether people understand how the judicial process works. Court should communicate more clearly and transparently through public legal education. Maybe we give the education, or we promote on the TV, like a little bit short advertising, but like because many people cannot understand the process of nowadays judge. So if we introduce or improve more understanding for people, maybe it's better, and they're gonna make people understand and trust all the process for they can rely on the judgment process.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems like we still have more time. How many minutes? 15 minutes. Okay. You want to present it to the... Yes, it's okay. Yeah. You need the slides? Okay. Is it possible to use the slide, or is a mechanical problem still? Maybe.
Not this one.
But it has to be brief, though.
So that is not my slide. Judicial independence. Yes, okay. Go back. Please go to the page of judicial reform. Yes, sir.
He needs to press in the...
Here, I would like to show you that according to my opinion, we need to have a good judge, and then that's why I would like to talk to you about the judicial reform. First of all, to be a good judge must have a good knowledge in law, not good knowledge in other fields which are not law. Sometimes we recruit judges from the economists, politics people, political people, famous people from the media to be judged in a constitutional court. That is sometimes make a lot of problem, because when the judge have not enough knowledge, they can make a ruling as a prejudice ruling. And sometimes that ruling become a bad standard, and the lower court need to follow that standard. Imagine how the justice of that nation can be maintained. So that's why education of the judge need to be reformed. According to my opinion, magistrate school and training program for the judges need to be organized by all countries around the world, not in Asia, around the world. So all judges need to have solid knowledge of law and legal practice. To become a judge, the candidate must earn at least a bachelor degree of law and can pass the bar exam and gain significant legal experience, 5 years or more as an attorney. Without practice, you just pass the exam of recruitment and you become a judge at the age of very young age. How can imagine that the judge which have any experience before can understand the problem of the family law, can understand the problem of the woman, especially equality of gender. That is a big problem. Sometimes young judges need to, according to my opinion, I think that young judges need to have a solid training. And that's why we need to have a mature judge. The judge must be mature, not to be not to be a good, not to be a new driver of the justice. look like you are a new driver of the car. You can you may make a lot of accident, right? As a judge, it may be okay. Not only that, integrity reform, all judges must be honest, ethical, and having strong moral principle regardless of anybody who will criticize them. And judge must not involve in any kind of corruption. So judge must come to the court with clean hand. Not only the party in the case must come to the court with clean hand, judges also, and it is a must as a role, imminent role of the judge, important role of the judge. Finally, judiciary system must be strengthening by and must be cooperated by all partisans in all society around the world in order to have a strong independence of judges, in order to have a fair judgment, in order to have a good law and good justice. So law is just not a norm which has a legal binding force. Law must have justice as well. So judge can play this role and can render justice to all people, especially judge can be a guardian of the justice, according to my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Persit. And I think we come to the conclusion now because the time is up. Actually, I really want to ask briefly, like, in one sentence. I just want you to leave the message that you think is the most essential to the audience regarding this topic.
Okay, mine's very simple. I said it in my opening slides. It's not a issue or problem in isolation, right? You can undertake reforms in the judiciary, but it's part of a bigger problem because if you look at the whole ecosystem or value chain, it's all related. So it's related to the executive, it's related to the legislative. So you can, I think the key question you're going to ask me also I know is what do I think would be the key reform for judiciary, and I think that is obviously judicial independence. That was also said by, I think in the opening remarks, it must actually be done. So there's actually need to have political will to do it. It can't just be seen to be done, but needs to actually be implemented. So at the end of the day, whether that person still has discretion or autonomy in the law, on the act, it says something, but in practice, something else happens, right? So that's quite unfortunate, but that's one. But in order to address or rectify the whole problem, we need to see it from the whole ecosystem, from the legislative and also the executive side.
Thank you very much. Actually, I would like to ask more from the civil law perspective from one of you, but the time is pressing. I have been stared at. So now we have to really conclude. Okay, 30 seconds.
No problem. I said that in Thailand the judicial is so good in general case, but we need to rethinking about in some politics case, in some free speech case, in some ICPPR that get involved, and also some court might be instantly reform because as Professor Prasit said about the Constitution Court, we look into the public trust maybe 0 or not more than 1 from 10. Okay. Also about the court itself, I think the judge must be proud to be the judge, and then make the justice become true. Not only the justice in the books, but it must be true in real life. And then I think that when we talk about the justice in Thailand, that I think most of them are so good, but in some special one, that must be reformed. Okay. Thank you very much.
Must be good at heart and soul as a judge. So thank you very much, all the panelists today. And now I must hand over the panels to Mr. Thanuwat so we can have the appreciation sections. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Ms. Lily and the panelists, all the panelists on the stage. That would be very, very fruitful discussions here today. Right now, I would like to invite Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Isam Sairi. Honorary Advisor of ISI, International Strategy Institute, to provide the token of ceremony of appreciation to the panelists and our moderator. Please give a round of applause. Okay, so before going down, could you please? Okay, for the last photo, please make a group photo together for the panelists and please wait a bit time. One more photo, please. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you very much, our moderator and panelists, for the meaningful discussion. Please proceed to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the second panel discussion, entitled Digital Transformation of Courts, Innovation, Cybersecurity, and Access to Justice. With that, I would like to invite the moderator once again. Okay, during the session, we will have a bit time to take a rest before we go into the second panel discussions. With these times, you can go and take some breaks for around 5 minutes. But only 5 minutes because we have a very, very short time for a very fruitful sessions that we need to join together in this World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026. And for the panelists of the second
Raira, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our panelists. And again, I will pass the floor to Ms. Lily to begin the panel discussion.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to the second sessions of the World Judicial Integrity Forums of 2026. And once again, I will be your moderator for these sessions. So in these second sessions, the topic that we are going to be focusing on is more advanced. We are talking about digital transformation of courts, innovation, cybersecurity, and access to justice. And we are honored to have the experts come from Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and also Brunei. So ladies, Philippines, sorry. Sri Lanka, Philippines, and Brunei. I am really sorry. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Shanaka Gunasekara from Sri Lanka. He is the partner and head of data protection of privacy of FG&J D Saram to give the opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. And the topic is digital transformation of courts, innovation, cybersecurity, and access to justice. So we'll begin from innovation. I think we all know the court systems worldwide are not required.
Okay.
Court systems worldwide are slow in terms of adapting innovation. So we are in the era of artificial intelligence, which is basically generative AI, and how do we integrate this into the judicial system so that the efficiency can be increased. We all know the principle, justice delayed is justice denied. So unless we keep up with the technology, what happens is that the public trust that we all talked about will start slowly deteriorating. And it has, to a certain extent, worldwide, justice system has deteriorated in a way that because everybody believes if you go to court, the process is slow and the judgment will come at a much later date. So the need for integration of innovation into the judicial system is more critical than ever. So in the panel discussion, we will dwell into how the artificial intelligence can play a role there and the challenges that are there, especially the digital divide and the lack of infrastructure, which will prevent the innovation from being ruled out, because in a country where there's a judicial system, you need to address both the rural areas, developed areas, all together. So when you are addressing all the sectors of the economy, you cannot roll out the technology which is cutting edge without actually providing the infrastructure to the rural segment as well. So the innovation with the challenges, and how do we overcome those challenges? We'll have to delve into that. And then the cybersecurity. With the innovation in the digital sphere, the number one threat is the cybersecurity challenges. That means the hacking to the social engineering, all that would result in confidential information being lost or damaged. Say, for example, if it would be equivalent to burning down a court registry, the physical registry, to actually hack into a database and then ensure that the data is encrypted in a way that the evidence can no longer be retrieved. So cybersecurity, while adapting innovation, cybersecurity also needs to be maintained. As you all know, the cybersecurity is founded upon any information security system, I would say, is founded upon the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So integrity is actually the part of the topic of this forum. And the integrity in the cyberspace practically means ensuring that the data is protected and it's also free from corruption, the data corruption. And so that cybersecurity aspect needs to be built in to the innovation steps that we are taking. That means ensuring that the information management system is continuously improved so that the challenges are identified, risk is analyzed, treatment options are found, and they are deployed and monitored, and the cycle should continue. So then the third aspect is access to justice. The this is where the innovation and the bridging of the social inequalities needs to take place, because the more you drive towards innovation, the more issues of access to justice can arise. Because even if you have internet literacy, dealing with the e-court system is not an easy challenge. Because even a person who has literacy would find difficult to deal with a sophisticated system. So the accessibility features, ensuring that the necessary training is provided, public awareness is provided, all that is required. That's, in addition to that, providing the infrastructure, ensuring that there is stable internet connections, ensuring that there is no power outage during hearings. And if that happens, how do we ensure the session is progressed and making available the resources, such as the break rooms for the client and lawyers to have discussions. All that becomes relevant, ensuring access to justice. And with that I think we can dwell into a discussion with my learned colleagues on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful remarks, Mr. Shanaka Gunasekara, partner and head of data protection and privacy of FJ&G Disaram. And now I would like to invite our next panelist, Mr. Leland R. Villadolid, Jr. from Philippines, co-managing partner and senior partner of Ankara Abello Concepcion Regala and Cruz Law Offices, to commence his remarks.
Hello. Yes, good morning, everybody. To start with, I'd like to introduce the word ugnayan. Ugnayan is a Filipino word which means connection between the people and its institutions. And this is one of the guiding principles of our Philippine Supreme Court in trying to use digital innovation on bridging this gap between people and the judicial institutions. So the reason why digital innovation became critical is, the irony is that 95.8 million Filipinos out of a population of 117 million are actually media users. So the Philippines is one of the highest users of internet, and you have 98 million internet users and about 50% of households with internet. But again, the problem there is that you have areas that are in far-flung areas that don't have the required infrastructure to adequately bridge this gap between people who actually need access to courts through this access to courts. And that is the reason why our Supreme Court thought that you leverage digital innovation in order to bring justice to the people. Now, what else was the trigger that spurred our Supreme Court in furthering the advance of digital innovation in the country? One was the 2023 incident wherein there was a breach of the e-payment system of the judiciary. And the next one was the 2025 cyber attack, in which a number of government institutions were simultaneously attacked, were subjected to cyber attacks. The Supreme Court itself was subjected to 9 million DDoS attacks, but fortunately, all of these were they were successfully repelled by the cyber security systems of the Supreme Court. So, and because of this, what happened was the Supreme Court came out with a SPJI, which means Strategic Plans for Judicial Innovation. The 4 core principles of this SPJI was timely and fair justice, transparent and accountable justice, equal and inclusive justice, with use of a technologically adaptive management. And that was supposed to be a 5-year plan which started in 2022 all the way up to 2027. And during that period, the following reforms were implemented. One was the e-court, which is the digital digital platform for electronic service of filing and service of summons. Then we also have remote hearing and equal access to law. Because of the problem of lack of the infrastructure, the idea was to bring justice to the people. So we have video conferencing buses that would go to remote areas wherein remote hearings could be conducted for the people. We have digitization of payments. And having established all these digital forms of innovation in providing justice or access to justice, the next question that needed to be tackled was, how do you now use AI with respect to the environment of providing access to justice? And we have three core principles that were established. Human in the loop, wherein it is always the human that has oversight over the AI. Human in command, final decision is always with the human, and human on the loop. From the beginning stage, from the development, adoption, and implementation, there will always be human intervention. So human in the loop, human in command, human on the loop. One of the AI software that is already in use in the Supreme Court is the use of scripting. This is wherein they use an AI-enabled software to transcript voice-to-text transcription, and this is used by all. It is mandated to be used by all court stenographers throughout the Philippines. When this was implemented in March 2026, you had a efficiency rate of 90% in terms of completion and speed of the transcription of the stenographic notes. Okay, cybersecurity in the judiciary. Of course, one of the first things that we did was migrate data to the cloud. Because it ensures there's a disaster recovery system in place. It's easier to monitor. Then we have the secure platform. All courts were given the respective PJ365 accounts. This is the high-end enterprise version of Microsoft Office. And then, of course, we have constant cybersecurity training for personnel. You have what you call constantly monitoring and testing, like the Supreme Court has red, blue, and purple teams. The red team is tasked with constantly trying to infiltrate the system, the blue team to repel, and the purple team to monitor the interaction between the red and blue teams. So these are done. It's like sort of penetration testing that is done throughout the year to ensure that the cybersecurity systems of the judicial portal is safe. Now, the immediate results of the implementation of the innovations of the Supreme Court is that it has improved. Prior to the implementation of these innovations, we had an average inflow of 43,000 cases per month, a total of pending cases of 704,000. So this was pre-pandemic, but with the the early implementation of these judicial reforms, first-level courts have improved in terms of disposition from 53% to 60%. Second-level courts for 30 to 40%. Now, you know, this may seem low, but it is a good start because it's to ensure that the data is secure, and at the same time, you will see that there is a marked improvement in the disposition of cases. Okay. Significant improvements require holistic reform. The Supreme Court has started this way back in 2022, but you would also need a holistic approach in the sense that the digital technological infrastructure needs to be improved by so that improves coordination from the telecommunications companies. It will also need coordination with other branches of government like the executive department, who is in charge of the Department of Justice and the Public Defender's Office, and of course also coordination with the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Because you cannot just have the one aspect, meaning the judiciary, improving or providing all these technological innovations without having a similar approach or strategy from the part of the executive branch and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. So that is it for my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leland R. Villadolit, for providing us a very clear example of the frontier improvement as example from Philippines, from the judicial system with digitalization, with the concept that I haven't heard about, I think many people haven't heard about, such as Unagan, Scriptics, and many more. And now I would like to invite Judge Hasarena Huraira from Brunei Darussalam to deliver your opening remarks.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning still. I come from the perspective, a twofold perspective. I'm a court administrator, so I'm involved in the implementation and execution of the digitalization of the courts. And I'm also a sitting judge, so I'm also coming from the perspective of a user of digital services. So I just wanted to quickly walk through our journey over the last 10 years. It wasn't something that we aspired to in Brunei, to have our system to be digitalized. It was really something that we thought was necessary. So in 2015, we embarked on our digital journey. It first started with the judiciary case management system. And it was really a system that was adopted from Malaysia. It was a Malaysian company that came in and built the system for us. And it really transformed the way we offered our services in court. And it wasn't just only criminal and civil cases. We rolled it out to all our court services, including marriages, probate, and bankruptcy. So this really was a fundamental shift in how we delivered court services. Phase 2 is where we implemented or pushed digitalization a bit more. So between 2015 to 2020, we implemented online hearings. And this really coincided with COVID. Because we had already had our files digitalized, 99% of our cases could be conducted online by the time COVID happened. We also made it mandatory for our registered users to file all court documents online, and all 3 levels, so from the lowest level up to the apex court, they all use the digital system. I'm not sure if it was the same cyber attack, but in 2025, Brunei also experienced a cyber attack. And because of that, we had to take our system down. It was something that we felt that to ensure that the confidence of the public was maintained, we didn't want the problem of information being leaked, so the whole system was taken down quite quickly. So technology may fail, but justice has to keep on prevailing. So what have we learned from this incident? First is resilience. If the system goes down, we must have a backup system to ensure that we can continue with operations. We now know, because of the influx of cybercrime, threats, the system must be secure, and there must be governance to help ensure that it is a holistic approach, that it's not only the judiciary's problem, but it's also the government's problem. And then third is access to justice. We understand that a lot of people are still very unfamiliar with the use of technology, particularly litigants in person. They're still very important to us. So digitalization shouldn't be a barrier, but it really should help people access our system, our services. So resilience, I won't say too much on this, but basically what happened is because the system went down, we had to have a system that was semi-use of tech and still go back to a manual system. So really it was in preparation to ensure that when the system did come back on, we could then integrate all the files that had gone manual. Pillar 2, and this really was a response by our government when the use of AI started to really come in, the government reacted quite quickly. So we have a one government private cloud to ensure sovereignty of our data, and also mandatory security testing as well through the various government agencies as well. In the court system itself, we've also issued AI governance principles. So how our court users or the people in the judiciary will use AI responsibly. Pillar 3, access to justice. Yeah, the system is designed to accommodate everyone. So people who are used to technology, who like technology, and people who don't necessarily are comfortable with technology. An example would be, by default, we do online hearings. But if a litigant feels that they're not comfortable with online hearings, they can always approach the registry and put in a request to have an in-person hearing. So it's still very flexible in Brunei. From 2025, we have now embarked on a 5-year project. We are looking now to a JCMS 2.0. We'll be extending our legal services. So services that weren't included in our first system will be rolled out. So this includes legal aid, admission of practitioners, enhanced automation, so people can key in information and the court forms or the court documents will be produced automatically for them. Data-driven decisions, so especially useful for me as a court administrator. KPIs can be generated based on data as well. And of course, we cannot forget the use of AI, and that will be integrated into our system. So the objective is always, it's the same, with or without technology. Justice should be efficient, secure, and accessible. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Judge Hasarena Huraira from Brunei. As the acting chief registrar of the Intermediate Court Judge of the Supreme Court of Brunei Darussalam, for your immense details in your journey through court legislation, especially in cyber attack. And as we already discussed in the cyber attack issues, I would like to ask the question regarding the cyber attacks. In terms of your personal opinion, Mr. Shanaka, how court strengthen cybersecurity framework to protect sensitive judicial data and prevent system vulnerabilities?
Yes, thank you for that question. So in terms of protecting the digital information, I think a court system should follow the same approach that is taken by the private sector, because when it comes to cybersecurity, there are no two standards. International standards remains the same. Now, say for example, in this part of the world, and it's internationally accepted, ISO 27001, which is Information Security Management System. So what does it provide for is basically that CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So around that, there is a framework that is developed. And the beauty of adapting a framework, whenever you are deploying cybersecurity measures, if you deploy an internationally accepted framework, the beauty of that is it's certifiable, meaning it's very easy to say I'm protected but the members of the public, especially when the cyber attack take place, and when the cyber attack take place in other jurisdictions as well, they ask the question, how are we protected? You say we are protected, but how are we? The only way to do that is to go for a certification. And that's where the standards coming in. And they are if you look at the framework itself, the framework provides that there should be leadership and commitment, which is number one, especially in the public sector. What happens is sometimes it begins. But thereafter, with the government changes, policy changes, it drops. But with a certification in, what happens is that each year there is a mandatory auditing that takes place. If you find non-conformities, what will happen is you lose the certification. Then immediately alarm bells goes off, because then the members of the public can perceive that the system is no longer secure. Then with the leadership and commitment, you begin with a risk assessment. That's the number one thing. It's easy to deploy technology and think you are secure, but the risk assessment. What are the risks? If I am to deploy artificial intelligence, and if a particular solution is selected, what are the risks that are involved? And a full-scale risk assessment, and based on the risk assessment, you need to develop a risk treatment plan. The risk treatment plan would then identify information security controls, people, organizational, technical, and otherwise. So all those controls will thereafter address each and every identified risk. Then you need to document it, a statement of applicability, and based on the statement of applicability, you deploy thereafter the security measures. But actually, prior to deploying it, each risk needs to be brought down to an acceptable level, which we call risk appetite. If the risk appetite it is at an acceptable level only, you end up in deploying it. So that's why every technology needs to get tested in that way. So if the risk level is unacceptable, you cannot deploy it. It means that you are not saying no for the technology, but you are ensuring that until it is brought up to a particular level, you don't deploy it. So then once you do the risk treatment plan, and then when you deploy, the other key absolute thing is continuous monitoring. I think my learned colleague from Philippines, as well as the learned colleague from Brunei, both mentioned that with the cyber threats that is coming in, and my learned friend from Philippines mentioned the red team, blue team, purple team. That is where the monitoring, continuous monitoring, and then hardening of the systems. Because in the cyberspace, you have the white hackers, the black hat hackers, and the white hat hackers. So the same approach that is being used. So the continuous monitoring, and based on the continuous monitoring, it needs to go to the continual improvement, not continuous improvement, continual improvement, because continuous improvement suggests every second you are improving. In the properly structured information security management system, what you are expecting is gradual increment, meaning not every day, but you monitor, you figure out the solutions, then you improve, continually improve, and then the cycle continues. So it's a continuous cycle, there is no stoppage. If at any point of time there's a stoppage, then the system collapses, because you begin with a secured system, because the threat landscape continuously evolve. If you do not continue, the system become vulnerable. And that is why the certification again is important, because you cannot maintain a certification unless you continue with the cycle. I hope that adequately answers the question.
Yes, you really answered the question, and thank you very much. So you think we need to have a standard, the clear standard and the framework to have a certification. And thank you for the practical approach of how the certification framework should be. So it should be in international framework, right? The same or standard. Do you think like globally?
Yes, because let me give from private sector perspective. Now, with the GDPR came in, worldwide, if you have to provide services which involve processing of PII, then obviously the controller based in, let's say, European Union cannot come to Malaysia or Sri Lanka or Brunei or Philippines and figure out whether this person has an environment which is suitable for handling data. So what do they have to do? What they do is they say either I will come for an audit, which is not practical, or you provide me a certification. And that's where the standards got developed. So these independent standards like ISO 27001 SOC2 and then for the PIMS ISO 27701 all got developed to address those needs. So from a small company providing services to a large scale company, these standards are scalable and they are applicable to the public sector as well. So when you follow a standard like that, let's say for example with the future there will need to be integration between judiciaries, especially mutual assistance in electronic documents. So you need to have APIs that are secure from both ends. So if the system now, say for example, we need to collect with Philippine system which seems to be far ahead of Sri Lanka at the moment. But at that point, Philippines needs to ascertain by linking any of these systems in mutual assistance, am I exposing my system to a threat? But if I have the certification, then immediately, as opposed to a red flag, what you have is a green flag. So then what you need to do is only limited level of penetration tests, limited level of security assessment, and also figure out in the auditing certificate what are the issues that have been raised. So interoperability, integration, all that can be achieved if there is a standardization.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very clear. And what about Mr. Leland's perspective in cybersecurity framework to protect sensitive judicial data and prevent system vulnerabilities? Because in Philippines you have been attacked as well, right? So what is your perspective on this?
I think to be able to adequately prepare for this, there are certain truths that we need to recognize and accept. First is that black hackers will always be there to attempt to find out the defenses of these institutions. They may do so for money, just for fun, or just to be plainly disruptive, because that's what they do, these black hackers. White hatters, on the other hand, are the ones responsible for defending these institutions and sniffing out these black hackers. So it is not a fixed standard, or it constantly evolves or changes. Like for now, the current acceptable mantra is that right now it is the principle of zero trust cybersecurity, which means that in accessing the cyber framework of a company, you trust no one. You always assume, externally, internally, trust no one. And then the second principle is the principle of less privilege, which means that the least amount of privileges you give to a user, the better. In other words, instead of maximizing the user's privileges in a certain system, you scale it down to the least possible so that it reduces the exposure. Okay. Then the third is that the depth of each level has a depth of protection. In other words, each device, user, even the printers, endpoints, all of that have their respective multi-factor authentication, user access privileges, and all that. It's all combined. So it's redundant. There's always this redundancy. So again, but all these things, they're all now, what's applicable now. In the future, another, the black hacker will think of something better, and then we have to react accordingly.
Yeah, because I think in the future, it might be even gray hacker, right? Sometimes black, sometimes white. So I think your zero trust is really working in this regard. So we have discussed regarding the cybersecurity framework, and now I would like to ask Judge Hasarena, in terms of managing digital evidence and online proceedings, how can court ensures the procedural fairness and due process?
Yes, I think technology is an enabler, but it's not the means to the end. So the basic principles of evidence still apply. Our Evidence Act wasn't amended that much to cater to digital evidence, except that we now accept certain forms of digital evidence. But the main principles are still the same. Admissibility, weight, those really are left to the judge. Did you, yeah.
Okay. So the judicial principle still needs to rest with the judge. So is it the same as in terms of, the balance between the efficiency gained from digitalization with the need for human judgment and judicial discretion?
Definitely. So I think when you talk about use of technology or digitalization, it's very much a linear process, a lot of numbers, a lot of zeros and ones. Yes, no algorithms. But when you talk about court proceedings, each case is distinct on its own facts. The way parties react are different from case to case. So those balancing the use of technology and the nuances of people is very important. I think you have to cater to both. And again, it comes to whether or not a person is comfortable with the use of technology or not. And it's very much a policy in Brunei that if you are not ready to take on board digital systems, we will still cater to you. So we have maintained a person at the registry or at the counters to assist our court users.
So do you have the standard as in terms of limitations of how far we can go in terms of digitalization using digital tools involving in the judgment and the procedure of the courts?
Yes. So we do have specific internal AI guidelines. And it does set out what you can and shouldn't use AI for. Obviously, when we're doing legal research or when lawyers bring us documents, they bring a lot of documents, and sometimes it's just not practical to go through thousands of volumes of documents. So AI can be used to summarize information for the judiciary. But ultimately, the decision has to come from the judge, and I don't think that is something that will ever change in the near future.
Yeah, because some of audience have really curious about AI judge, ideas. So you strictly thinking that the discretion and digital decision needs to come from a human being that have morals, ideas as a judge, right? So now I would like to ask all of you, all the panelists, in terms of digital inequalities, that how can judicial system address the issues of digital inequality and ensure equal access to justice for all users. But before that, maybe you can give us the example of how digital inequality manifests, when we apply AI or digital tools.
Okay. So if I take my country example, and the internet penetration is not at 100%. So we are at about, I would say, 51%. And so with that being the case, if you end up in deploying an e-court system, that you would immediately see certain part of the community would be left out. So the internet expansion is absolutely key. Even if you have the internet expansion, then comes the other challenge. That, I'll give the easiest example. So lawyers would say, I'm familiar with the Microsoft Word. But the moment they are asked to work in Microsoft Excel, they say, I'm not that much familiar with it. Because you may have the internet literacy, you may know how to use a particular software, social media, whatever, but when it comes to, when you are given a different platform, usability of that platform, the accessibility of that platform, that depends on how easy that can be perceived and how easily it can be used. So the digital divide there again can arise if the system is very sophisticated. So the system itself can give rise to digital divides. Then on the other side of it, you will have the infrastructure, other infrastructure. Say for example, if I want to be a witness and I am summoned to be a witness, if I don't have electronic device at my home, then there is a problem. Then when you adopt security protocols, now one of the biggest things that you would see is many people use mobile phones. But how many of them actively update when there is a security patch coming in? Hardly anyone. So that is why in an enterprise environment you have the central push. But in a human society you can't do a central push. So let's say you have a device, it is up to the standard, but you haven't updated. You try to log in and the system deny you access because the security patch has not been applied and the system is detecting that as a security threat. So there is a clear knowledge gap, and even if once you update the knowledge, then how do we keep up with it? Because environment constantly changes. So the digital divide will always be a subject. But all what you can do is how do I minimize it? Never, you can have the absolutely brilliant goal of elimination, but it will only be a dream.
Okay. So we need to keep updating for the knowledge gap and capacity, and I think awareness of this, right? And infrastructure cooperate to create the equality. How about Mr. Leland, in your perspective?
Well, if you've seen earlier from my slide, there's really, if you look at it in terms of percentage, there's no digital inequality in terms of, because 85% of the population have access to internet. It's really more of educating, educating stakeholders and convincing them, convincing the lawyers, and for the lawyers to convince their respective clients of the importance of using these digital devices to be able to have more in law, rather than, if they can use their respective digital devices to do other things, because they're so active in the internet, doing all this social media and all that, then they should use that same zeal in being able to use their digital devices in order to have more in law. Okay. So it's a question of education and convincing stakeholders of the importance of using these digital devices and innovation in order for them to protect themselves by using the law.
Okay, so the stakeholders needs to be managed in terms of the inequalities. And how about you, Judge Hasarena?
I was thinking about this. Brunei is quite similar to Philippines. We've got a high internet penetration rate, over 90%, I think. So we don't have a problem in that sense, but maybe there might be a mismatch in the language. So coming from Brunei, my mother tongue is Malay, and English is usually the second language. But in the court system or in the civil courts, English is the first language. So often it's not so much about people not being comfortable with using technology. It's probably the language barrier and the fact that there needs to be a lot of translation and interpretation services. But now that I know Philippines uses script text, and I'm sure that it is able to catch different languages, I think it's definitely something that we could look into.
Okay, so you think about applying the same approach?
Just a correction. Right now, it's the system allows them to translate Tagalog. Yeah, but in the Philippines, you have a lot of dialects. But right now, principally, it's Filipino that can be used to translate to English.
So it's really effective in terms of the translation. And I'm curious by myself, like even the older generations in Philippines and Brunei are really into the digital tools that they are really using is in terms of law?
I've had litigants who are mature, so I would say over 60 years old, who have been quite comfortable with using online hearings. So it really hasn't been much of a barrier in Brunei to use technology. I mean, it's very easy nowadays. You just need to have the application turn on your phone and connect. So it's really not a problem.
It's like doing a carrot and stick to these older practitioners. And then when I'm referring to the older practitioners, that includes me, because you mandate it or require it during the mandatory continuing legal education, which you're required to secure every 3 years. So you just insert it as a requirement that you have to you have to know all these tools. Then you also need to educate judges. They also have to, because there are also judges who are resistant to all these digital innovations. They also have to undergo their respective judicial training programs to update them with all these tools.
So I agree with my learned colleagues, and I think as has been done in Brunei, if I have not misunderstood it, so up until a particular stage, hybrid system will have to be maintained, because you can't leave out the rural community. And I completely agree with regard to the people who have the capability but not, sort of like their resistance to adapt, then there has to be immediate push. You cannot have that attitude. You need to agree. And with regard now, say for example, I think we were having a discussion even on this particular topic among ourselves. I think in Philippines you have the mobile court system where to provide the correct. So now there are other countries also that have adapted. So that's another solution that is available where the infrastructure is brought to the area, so that, and then obviously I believe there will be officers who are handling the kiosk and all that would be there. So that would again minimize the digital inequalities. So there are various tactics that are available. Obviously, as we mature, we may find different techniques such as the mobile court system.
Okay, so we need a proactive approach, maybe in terms of the digital welfare, something like that, right? So now I want to move into the regards of the key challenges and how to solve the challenges in implementing e-filing system, virtual hearing, and digital case management platform. May I start with? Okay, Mr. Serena.
Yes. I think when we first embarked on our digital journey in 2015, cyber threats weren't really a big thing. It's not something that we necessarily thought of. But now, fast forward 10 years, it really is something that you have to consider. And because of that, we've got, I think in the last 5 years, at least 5 government organizations that look after different aspects of cybersecurity. Last year, we implemented the Data Protection Order. We've also got an agency called Rangsit, who looks after the certification of any cybersecurity issues or threats. There's quite a few of them, and because they're still new, I'm not too versed in them, but really it has come as a holistic approach. And we have decided, because I know it's usually argued whether or not judiciaries should have their own cloud, or is it better to go with the big companies like Amazon and Google and subscribe to them, and Microsoft as well. But we've decided that to protect our security, we've gone for a government cloud system, so we maintain the sovereignty of our data.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mine will just be brief. With respect to the Philippine judiciary, it adopted a hybrid approach. So it makes use of the cloud, and at the same time it has on-prem services to manage certain applications. The thinking is that at least not all the eggs are in one basket or are in the cloud. Okay. The second point is that traditionally you have the castle and moat mentality, where everything inside the castle is protected and everything to prevent outside. But that has already been discarded, because we know that attacks can come from both internal and external. So the applications, the cybersecurity measures implemented by our Supreme Court is the defense in depth. Defense in depth strategy means each device application has its own independent sets of cybersecurity measures. So it's layered and redundant. And it covers all. It covers the device, the endpoint, even the printer, anything that the user. So those are the things that are being done. And then on top of that, as I mentioned earlier, you have the constant monitoring and testing by the red, blue, and purple teams. Thank you.
So, from a Sri Lankan step, we are still at the inception. Basically, in 2021, with the COVID came in, we adopted emergency rules to allow proceedings conducted for urgent matters by way of digital hearings. And thereafter, in 2025, Sri Lankan judges, Supreme Court judges, and a team of professionals visited India because India has made quite advancement in terms of the digitizing their judicial system, and they are actually in the process of setting up national judicial data grid. And with that knowledge borrowed from India, we have also launched the e-court project, where we recently the Supreme Court conducted the very first full digital hearing. And in terms of challenges and how to overcome them, it's still a journey that they are looking at. Because as we roll out, they will have to end up in ensuring that the system is protected. So that is where I actually advocate and as well as argue in Sri Lanka, it has to be standardized. Because at the end of the day, otherwise it's about them saying, okay, I follow these particular set of protocols. Now, my learned colleagues pointed out very clearly that the challenge landscape evolves. So when the challenge landscape evolves, unless you standardize, they say, for example, now he pointed out zero trust doctrine and the access controls. So all of them are controls, principal controls. But how you adapt them, the content of it needs to evolve. So that's why when you standardize, unless, let's say, your encryption level increase to that level, you don't get the certification. I'll give a very simple example. Now, olden days, 6-digit password was enough. Now the current recommendation, 12 characters, again is a combination. So unless you evolve your password policy in that particular way, you will not be able to keep up with the security. So you can have endpoint security, you can have all access controls right now. The moment the challenge comes, you have to change the landscape again. So that is why standardization is actually the number one thing I would advocate for.
Yes, even though the countries have, different backgrounds and capabilities, you still believe that we need to have a certain standard that is the same, right?
Well, I think it's a sort of a misunderstanding in that way. Standardization in the sense following a standard framework. Say, for example, the ISO, if you take the ISO itself, it has 92 controls. So all the 92 controls, it does not say that for the encryption this is the encryption 256-bit or 128. What it says is encryption. And then you have to actually do a risk assessment of your organization and figure out what is the level of risk encryption that we need to have. So that's what it means by standardization. You follow a framework. You have a goal, you follow a framework, and then implement based on your risk. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that everybody have 12 digits password. It simply means you need to have a password policy appropriate to the risk that you have undertaken.
That's very clear. So, because the time is up, so if any audience have any question, maybe we could ask after the sessions to our panelists today. So I have to conclude these sessions and then hand back the stage to Mr. Thanuwat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This could be a very, very fruitful discussion once again for the second panel. So, in this case, I would like to ask Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Nizam Shairi, Honorary Advisor of the International Strategy Institute, on the stage to provide a token of appreciation to our panelists.
photographers, please have the photo groups together.
Once again, thank you very much to our moderator and panelists for the meaningful discussion. Please proceed to your seats. Before we go to have a very good lunch together, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the luncheon keynote address. It is my honor. Okay, please take us some time to prepare on stage. With the discussion 1 and 2 for today, that would generate a lot more topics that every guest here in this forum would just get a lot more fruitful and insightful things that never have happened before. It is very, very interesting. Okay, the time has come now. It's my honor once again to invite Mr. Pongdet Wanich-Kittikul, presiding justice of the Supreme Court, to deliver the luncheon keynote address. Please warm welcome.
Honorable judges, distinguished guests, representatives of international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is often said that justice never sleeps, but I believe even justice must pause for a good meal and great conversation. It is a true honor to be here today at the World Judicial Integrity Forum 2026. I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Vicha Mahakun and the Faculty of Law at Rangsit University, as well as the International Strategy Institute, for creating this bridge between legal minds from across the globe. As we gather here to discuss judicial integrity, we are discussing more than just a code of conduct. We are discussing the very oxygen of our democratic society. Throughout my journey in the Thai judiciary, from the lower courts to the Supreme Court, I have observed that laws are merely words on paper unless they are given life by judges of character. Judicial integrity is not merely an ethical aspiration. It is the moral foundation upon which judicial legitimacy rests. A court possesses neither the power of the purse nor the force of the sword. Its authority ultimately depends upon public trust. Trust that judges will act independently, fairly, impartially, and courageously, even in moments of political pressure, public controversy, or economic uncertainty. Indeed, history teaches us a simple but enduring truth. When judicial integrity is strong, societies remain stable. When judicial integrity weakens, public confidence erodes, institutions suffer, and the rule of law itself becomes vulnerable. In today's world, integrity is closely linked to efficiency. I have long advocated for procedural reforms, believing that justice delay is a form of systemic dishonesty. When citizens wait years for resolution, we fail our oath of service. As complex cases like environmental disputes and class actions rise, judicial integrity also demands expertise. Judges must be both ethically sound and intellectually prepared, ensuring the marginalized are heard in our courts. Technology now presents another defining challenge. Courts across Asia and beyond are adopting e-filing, virtual hearing, AI tools, and digital case management. These advances have improved efficiency and access to justice. Yet, digital transformation brings serious concerns. Cybersecurity threats, data protection risks, algorithmic bias, digital inequality, and the risk that technology may outpace legal safeguards. The judiciary must ensure that technological progress never compromises fairness, independence, or human dignity. Technology should enhance justice, not replace judicial judgment. No algorithm can replicate wisdom, compassion, or moral reasoning. No machine can substitute the conscience of an independent judge. The future court may be digital, but justice itself must always fundamentally human. Looking at our friends from the UN, the EU, and our ASEAN neighbors here today, I am reminded that the challenges we face, be it transnational crime and the ethics of AI in law, know no borders. We must build a global culture of integrity where we exchange not just laws, but values. Thailand is committed to being an active partner in this regional legal integration, ensuring that our standards align with international best practices. In closing, I hope that this luncheon will provides not only nourishment for the body, but also inspiration for the mind. Let us carry the spirit of this forum back to our respective benches and offices. Let us be the leaders who define the 21st century judiciary through our unwavering commitment to the truth. Thank you for your attention, and please enjoy your meal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pongdate, for your keynote address. And please remain on the stage. For this, I would like to invite Mr. CYJ, Chairman of the International Strategy Institute, to present the token to Mr. Pongdate. please take a round of applause to our distinguished guests. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now adjourn for the networking lunch session. Please enjoy your lunch and take this opportunity to network and engage the fellow participants. The conference will resume with the afternoon program at 1:30 p.m. Again, 1:30 p.m. We kindly invite all participants to return to the hall and remain seated by 1:25. As the next session will commence shortly thereafter. In the meantime, panelists and moderators for panel discussion 3, you kindly requested to return to the hall earlier for preparation prior to the afternoon session. And I just want to explain a bit for the place to have this lunch. So with the VIP lunch, we prepare for the table in the side of this hall, and for all the gates, we prepare the lunch table outside the room, so then you can go out and turn left, and then turn left once again. You will see the place for having lunch. Please have a good lunch here, and then we'll come back to a very, very interesting session again soon in the afternoon. Thank you very much.